everybody. This is Dorothy Mae Mercer for Talk Story TV. And this afternoon, we're going to introduce a gentleman who is an expert in interpersonal relationships. He's a professor at Algonquin College. It's a business school, but you get a bachelor's degree. I don't know if they have masters. He can tell us all about that later. He considers himself a communications expert and also a reformed control freak. Now, Brian and I have been talking for about a half an hour, and most of the time we've been laughing our heads off. He is the most entertaining fellow you can imagine. So I'm going to welcome him right away to Talk Story TV. Hi, Brian. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Dorothy. Thanks for inviting me to be here today.
It's great having you here, and we're going to talk about some of the things you do, maybe get a plug in there for your college and for your book, and if also you give talks all over North America, or you said, oh my goodness, you are a busy man. Tell us how you got involved in all of this.
Well, as I said, I tell people I've got the greatest job in the world. All I do is I travel around the country talking to people. And it's really about talking to people and how to communicate and interact more effectively with people. I'm a behaviorist by training as well, which is really just a fancy word for I watch people. So I watch people for a living. I'm not stalking, though, Dorothy, not stalking, just watching.
Well, I wondered what a behaviorist did.
Just observing, an observation of people. I believe that, and I really talk about that in my book as well. If we're going to learn how to communicate, interact more effectively, if we're going to learn how to manage people more effectively, so really what I talk about is I talk soft skills. The ability to interact with people. You're going to have a difficult time. You'll have a difficult time as a manager, but you'll also have a difficult time in general unless you learn soft skills. And the truth of the matter is, as you said, I have the good fortune of teaching as well. But we're not teaching soft skills. If you kind of think about that, our people really are losing the ability to develop a soft skill. If we think in terms of technology and text messaging and sending faxes and sending emails, this is very rare that you and I actually have an opportunity here to look on a screen and be able to carry on a conversation. And so what we are losing is what I refer to as soft skills or EQ. So a Daniel Goleman of the world would say, our emotional intelligence, our ability to be able to connect with people. So really that's what I do. I work with companies, I work with managers, I work with anybody really that wants to develop soft skills. If you think of a job, Dorothy, that you could do in your lifetime that didn't involve dealing with people.
That's right. You're right.
We'd be hard pressed. We'd be hard pressed. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as long as I didn't have to talk to people I guess I'd have to be self-sufficient, be able to grow my own food and kill my own game to be able to survive, and then absolutely off the grid. But if you're going to be on the grid, then you need that ability to be able to communicate and interact with people.
Well,
and so even if you're coming, if you're coming from a Harvard or you're coming from Yale, so you're technically going to be competent at what you do. You're going to know what you know, and you're going to know that very well. But that MBA is not going to be of much value to you unless you can sell that, unless you can get other people to jump on board and get on the same page.
You went out to a company that was having trouble with relationships. How would you go about it?
Well, same thing. Yeah, I think the first thing we would do is I think we're born a certain style. So I mentioned that in my book as well, is I think the key is to identify your style, and then more importantly, to identify the style that the people you're working with. So the premise would be, if I understood how you like to receive information, if I understood how you like to manage and like to be managed, and then I communicated with you and worked with you in a way that you like, chances are you're going to be more receptive to what I have to say.
So how do you find out?
And so really it's about, pardon?
How do you figure that out?
Yeah, well, really, again, I am the control freak. And really it was sitting back, it was sitting back. I've been self-employed now for, I've been a consultant and a teacher now for the last 14 years. But prior to that, for 30 years, I was in business for myself. I had 247 employees at one time. So I understand the challenge in working with people. And after I got into doing what I was doing, I really kind of sat back and I said, okay, what were the lessons there? What went well? What didn't go so well? And could I write a book to share some of that experience with other people that wanted to get into management or run their own businesses someday? And so that's really where that came about. It came about 3 years ago, kind of that Dave Letterman takeoff, the top 10.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, okay, well, what's the top 10 things that I've done wrong? And then it was more of a, I've done this, don't do that, do this instead. And so out of those top 10 came a book. And so within that book, each one of those sins, I've been there, done that, got the T-shirt. And saying to myself, okay, and I think the other thing, Dorothy, is it's the difference between a 20th century management style, which is sort of jump, and I'll tell you how high. But then, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then realizing, too, that this is 21st century now, and we have to change our management style to be more in tune with the 21st century thinking. And if we really think about 21st century thinking, it really is about soft skills and the ability to build relationships. You can no longer terrorize people or bully people into doing things that, in essence now, and I think this newest generation coming up, it's going to be a real challenge for a lot of people. I think the millennials are going to be a real challenge for everybody.
Yeah.
Because to them, it's not a career. To them, it's not a job. To them, you can't browbeat and coerce. It's more about building partnerships and working within teams and being collaborative. That's the kind of environment that they enjoy. They want to be involved in it. They want to have an opinion. They want to express that opinion. They want to be part of that team. So it's no longer, I don't think, a management style now which simply dictates is a management style that's going to be successful in the 21st century. People are a lot smarter now. They have different values now. They're getting into, and matter of fact, nonprofits now, NGOs, nonprofits, if you go back to the 60s and the Kennedy era, if you think about the Clinton era and the giving back, more and more young people are volunteering now for nonprofits and wanting to give back into the communities that, so they're not simply graduating MBAs for money. They're graduating and then being able to go into the private sector, but money's not the motivator. The ability to kind of give back and give back to their community. So I think there's a whole different mindset now.
I think
that takes a different management style. I think it takes a different management
well,
style.
one of the problems here, and I live in the United States, is with the unemployment and the college grads. Half of the college grads have not been able to get a job in their field. They're moving back with their parents. And so people are so afraid of being unemployed that they just, as you say, the boss tells them to jump and they'll say, how high? They don't like it.
Exactly.
But they're so afraid that they have to be that way. And so that makes the bosses a lot more bossy a lot more controlling, because they know if you don't do what they want, they're going to go right out and hire somebody else.
Yeah, but I think it's a little short-sighted on a boss's perspective, because training people, I mean, you might as well just put a revolving door on your front door. And that having to retrain and rehire and continue to retrain and rehire is expensive. So
Yeah.
I'm almost better to spend some money and train you and work with you. In other words, people like to work with people they like. And if you like the way that I'm treating you, it's more likely you're going to stay around. It's more likely that you're going to be more receptive. It's more likely that you're going to try harder. And the more that you interact, you know what I mean? So I've got to teach you how to interact and work with customers, because, again, customers are going to want to do business with people they like. So, and that's the soft side of business. So I think it would be short-sighted for owners not to want to a better way of interacting with people, because I don't think money in essence is a motivator per se, but I think everybody is motivated, and I think everybody can be motivated. I just think we have to create environments in which people want to motivate themselves, and so it's just a different way of looking at and managing people. I think the days of the bullies are really over, unless you're going to be satisfied, as I said, unless you're going to be satisfied in turning people over and continuing to have to hire people and retrain people. At some point, boy, that must get awful tiring.
Yeah.
To continue to do that.
Yeah.
That must get awful tiring.
So what are
And it's
you
really
thinking?
not about money. It's really about how I treat you.
Yeah. What would be the number one mistake then that you see management making, and that
thinking that they have all the answers, not tapping into the people that they have, it doesn't have to be my way. It just has to be the way. So I think it's, I always say in my management development workshops, I always say to managers, do you hire stupid people, or do they just get stupid after working for you? Because I think a manager's job is to teach you what you need to. I don't think we hire people fully trained. I think your job is to teach people what they need to know to be successful, because if they're successful, you're going to be successful. And it's realizing that you don't have all of the answers. One of my top 10 sins was really, park your ego at the door. It's not about being right. It's about doing whatever you need to do to accomplish what you need to accomplish. And it's understanding that you're never going to be successful alone. That unless you get people to buy into the process, unless you get people to buy in on what you're trying to achieve, then you're not going to be successful. You're not going to be.
So you go out to companies all over North America. Give us an example of, maybe you can't name names, but give us an example of maybe one of the places you've been and what you've done.
Well, matter of fact, I just signed a deal for 2013 actually, and it's all about soft skills. So around that book, the top 10 sins most managers make. So that has created a lot of buzz, and so out of that, I guess probably the three big issues up here is soft skills, teaching managers how to manage more effectively. So if we talk about, the productivity equation will never change. We must minimize the input to maximize the output. We're all dealing with less dollars. So grosses are under attack, bottom lines are under attack. So we have less money to spend, but yet we still have to accomplish those things. So when we don't have a lot of budgets, when we don't have a lot of money, then we have to develop a different management skill. So I'm absolutely convinced it's more about building relationships, developing people, developing collaborative cultures. So it's those 10 top sins that most managers have done, and trying to get them to realize they need to develop a different management style. So it's trying to bring them into 21st century thinking. Again, a little bit of that emotional intelligence kind of thinking. The other challenge that I get hired to speak about up here is generational differences.
Okay.
So the other challenge, I don't know if you're experiencing it down in the States, but I think it's going to be phenomenal. I think it's going to be a real challenge for companies. Each generation, so if you think about it, for the first time in our lifetimes, we're going to be dealing with 4 different generations in the same workplace. Yeah. 4 generations making up, i.e. our more senior people now can't afford to retire. We've got that same situation in here in Canada. So if you thought you're I guess down in the States it's your K40s or your Ks. So if you think you were going to have some money left over to retire, think again. All that's gone. So in essence, you're going to have to work longer in your lifetime because you really can't afford to retire. So all of a sudden, we're going to have 60-year-olds and 65-year-olds in the same workplace, working beside 50-year-olds and 55-year-olds. So we're going to have baby boomers. We're going to have Generation X. We're going to have millennials, which we call Generation Y. And then we're going to have Generation Zs. So you're going to have the traditionals. You're going to have the baby boomers, which is our generation. You're going to have the generation behind us who are waiting really for us to retire so they could have our job, but we're not going to retire. So they're sort of, you know what I mean? So you sort of got Generation X who are stuck. And then you've got millennials, your Generation Y, which is really what Obama tapped into to get elected. Yeah. So you're going to have the millennials who are biting at the heels of Generation X, who are waiting for the baby boomers to retire, who aren't going to retire. And then you still have some seniors, 68, 69, working at McDonald's, who can't afford to retire. So all of a sudden now you got 4 generations, right? Each generation communicates different.
What are some of the problems?
You got different set of values. Pardon?
Values, different sets of values?
Yeah,
what
so
are some of the differences?
Yeah, absolutely. They communicate different. They have different set of values. They're motivated differently. You got to manage them differently.
Okay.
So that's the excellent. And then the third one that's real popular up here is we call it staff disengagement. So staff are turning off and tuning out. And so how do you remotivate staff which are tuning out? And so that's a real big issue. There's a lot of fabulous reports that have just been published where, a majority of your staff are disenchanted, are turned off, and sort of just going through the motions to pick up a paycheck.
Yeah.
You really only have about 17% of your staff who are fully engaged. The majority of your staff, 50% and plus of your staff, are disengaged and just sort of waiting around and collecting a paycheck, but really not going out of their way to do too much.
Why?
And then the numbers would suggest you've got 14 of your staff, 14%, who are disengaged, but actively disengaged, sabotaging the 17% who are engaged. So that's another. So disengagement's a big deal down here.
Yeah, I can see that.
So those are the 3 biggest issues down here. How do we train managers to train? How do we motivate staff who are disengaged? And then how do we build collaborative teams across 4 different generations?
It's impossible.
So that's probably the three biggest issues. Yeah.
Well, I also see management that is disengaged. Not just staff.
You're absolutely right. Dorothy, it's top down. It's never bottom up. You got a problem within your company, within your organization, you got to look yourself in the mirror because you're the problem.
We just had that happen here in the United States with Hostess Company that makes Twinkies.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mismanaged. The management just bonused themselves out in the millions, tens, 20
Absolutely,
million
no question.
apiece, and the people, the workers were all unionized, so the union bosses are trying to get their part, and everybody else is just being pulled one way or the other. They're being used.
Absolutely no question.
And so
Absolutely no question.
They're out of a job on account of the management and the union. Neither one of them are worth beans.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the problem too, when venture capitalists, buy a company and then erode it from the inside out. So that's always an issue as well. Absolutely no question. And that kind of gets into the Bain Corporation type thinking, right? So and that would be a typical Bain type strategy where capitalists are just coming in and then eroding companies. But that problem started a long time ago when management, and then that's what I'm saying. I think there's a real disconnect between how we manage people and the way that we manage. And unless we fill in that gap, unless we try to recreate that culture within the organization, I think we all end up like a Hostess Twinkie.
How can you fix it? Have you got the answer to this?
Again, it's going back in. It's treating people like people. It's getting people involved in the organization. Get involved in the planning of it and executing of it. In other words, management doesn't have to have all. See, the problem with that is it takes a long time. So in other words, I think a collaborative culture is the way to go. However, management want what they want, and they want that yesterday, so they have a tendency to tell you what to do as opposed to negotiating and develop, So, yeah, until we change the culture, until management understands that they're supposed to be enablers. They're supposed to give their people the tools. They're supposed to look into the future and what kind of workforce will need to be developed for future, and put money back into training and put back money into developing our people. And until they reverse that trend, until they start and continue to build collaborative cultures, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It really is. If you think back, the law of attraction, right? I mean, you get what you give. And so if you treat me without respect, if you treat me like a number, if you treat me like I don't count, like I don't have an opinion, then that's exactly what you're going to get. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. But I think if management turns that around, I mean, we always used to think of that triangle, right? So the typical triangle is we put upper management at the very top of the triangle, and we normally put workers down on the bottom of the triangle. But really, in essence, if you don't get the rank and file to tune into what you're doing and get committed to what you're trying to accomplish, then you're really not going to be successful. We ought to turn the triangle around the other way, and the most important people in the organization are the people at the bottom of the triangle, who are the ones that were making it happen. Management get this idea that they're the end-all and be-all, okay? But really, in essence, they're not. It's inverting that triangle. So we need to get companies to invert the triangle again. We need to get companies to understand it. I mean, a lot of companies say it, that their people are the most important asset. Makes a great soundbite. But so then why aren't you treating them that way?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you wouldn't have given yourself, if you're a hostess, you wouldn't have given yourself those bonuses. The board of directors wouldn't allow that thing to be voted in. They had an opportunity to go, you know what? This is not right. I mean, this is not morally right. How can you take a bonus that size and still hold that person at $10 an hour and not give them a raise, when the one at $10 an hour is really the one that was making you money. You know what I mean? So, yeah, we got a problem there when you think you're more important than the people that work with you. So that was me. I mean, I was the ultimate control freak. But it's understanding that style just doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Well, what did you do?
21st century just doesn't work.
What did you do? What was your company like?
Well, again, you know, I was retail.
Okay.
I was retail for 30 years. Ran a couple of businesses, owned and operated. Did very well. But yeah, went through an expensive divorce. We'll just say that. It's in my book, by the way. You can buy my book. It's in my book.
Oh,
but
what could that be?
No.
Your divorce? What book is that?
Yeah,
Brian?
divorced. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like to say my wife is my best friend. My ex-wife's the best friend. It's really my best friend.
Oh. Well, that's different.
Yeah, it's different. But it's see, again, the success is about people. Success is about getting out of your own way. Success is about giving up control to get control. Success is about delegating. Success is about building collaborative teams. Success is about hiring people that do other things better than you do and let them do it. That's success. And until I started to realize that, and that's what I'm saying, in hindsight, you kind of sit back and say, okay, you know, what were the lessons there? And then out of that, can I share those lessons with other people in the hopes that they're going to try some of this stuff and find out it works better than what they're doing, that in essence they become more successful because of it, that it's less frustrating. Boy, oh boy, I got to tell you, dealing with people is probably the most challenging job there ever is.
And it's fun,
I mean, being
too.
a manager, being an owner, working with people is probably the most challenging career you could have chosen.
That's what I've done all my life. I've been a teacher.
A teacher.
Try to motivate those kids to practice the piano.
Bingo. How do you engage a disengaged student who doesn't feel they need to learn what you're trying to teach them?
I only had one like that, and boy, I finally had to give up. I couldn't motivate that kid because his papa wanted him to do one thing, and so his papa was paying me to teach this kid to learn a certain way, but the kid wanted to learn the other way. Now, I couldn't have taught him what he wanted, but I couldn't teach him what his papa wanted. So,
yeah,
I finally had to say I give up.
Yeah, absolutely no question. But I get that at the college level. So I'm teaching students that are ranging from the age of 17 to 29. And, yeah, the challenge is, but it's trying to reach them in a style that they like. And I think that's the biggest challenge for teachers nowadays is
well, that's the most
how
fun.
do we teach? Yeah, how do we turn someone on? In other words, I'm always saying you can't, you know, there's that old saying, you can't lead a horse to water, you know, and make them drink.
You got to get that right now, Brian. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
Yeah, you can make them drink. You just got to figure out how to make them thirsty. Right? It's what I call a whiffum, Dorothy. It's what I call a whiffum. W-I-I-F-M. A whiffum.
Okay. A whiffum.
I'll give you the first word. What's?
I give up. What?
Yeah, what's in it? What's in it for me?
Oh, yeah, I've heard
what's
that
in it
too.
For me?
What's in it for me? Yeah.
I speak about a lot of things. I speak about a lot of things in my book. So again, you know, what's in it for your student? See, I believe everybody is motivated. I believe you can motivate. I don't think you can motivate anybody, but I think everybody is motivated. You simply have to find out what turns their crank.
Exactly.
So what's there with them? What's in it for them? Why should they buy into what you're talking about?
Yeah.
And so why would that student need to learn what you were trying to teach them? What's in it for that student?
Yeah. Well, the thing I had to do was convince the father to let me use my own methods, but, well, that was just one student. I have to say, I taught for 40 years, and I was very successful.
God bless
doing
you.
exactly
God bless
what
you.
you said. But I had the advantage of just having one student at a time, maybe two at a time occasionally, and so I was able to focus on that student and figure out what motivated them. But when you're teaching a class of 100 students or 300 students, it's a different matter then.
Yeah, our classes here are going to average 55 to 72 students per class.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a textbook, 16 chapters, and you've basically got 14 weeks to teach it. So, but how do I teach that in a way that you're going to buy into what I'm saying? And again, what's the with them? So it's trying to convince a student that you're trying to teach them some skills that they're going to be able to use in the real world when they step out to start their careers.
Well,
but every student learns differently, right?
So
I don't think you can have one style of managing. I don't think you can have one style of managing. I don't think you can have one style of teaching. I don't think you can have one style of interacting with people. I use DISC. Yeah, so I use DISC, colors, Myers-Briggs. Again, I'm a big fan of that. I think we're born a certain style.
Yeah.
Which kind of dictates. And then I think I just learn your style, and then I simply work with you in a style that you like. I think people are just people.
Yeah.
And if I'm dealing with IBM salespeople, then again, you need 4 different sales pitches. You need 4 different styles, right?
Yeah. Well, tell our listeners a little bit about your college, and we're going to wind it up here pretty soon, but I think they'd like to know where you teach and how they might get your book. And
yeah, well, again, plug. Oh, by the way, did you get a copy I sent you?
You sent it to Julia Widdop Productions, and she's got the book.
Do you have an e-reader? Do you have an e-reader?
Yeah.
What do you got, Kobo or Kindle? What do you have?
Anything. I've got Kindle, I've got Nook, I've got General.
Okay.
I just download them on my computer.
I'll send you a Kindle. I'll send you a Kindle version of my book.
Okay. Love it.
Right, so you'll be able to take a look at it. But
okay.
Yeah, it's Algonquin College. I've been teaching 14. I have the greatest job in the world. What's kind of neat about that is again, I think a college's role is to teach them some skills that they can apply. So it's not theory, it's skills. I think university, like your Yales, like your Harvards, are more academic and more theory. I think I think my role as a college professor has always been to take that textbook, but then teach them how to apply that in the real world. So that's kind of the fun that I have. And so the fun that I get is because I do travel around North America, delivering corporate events, speaking at conferences, working one-on-one with companies, developing their management teams. The fun about that is I get to bring the corporate world into the classroom. That this is what that company A is looking to hire a graduate who can do B. And so my job is to teach you the B part of it so the A company will want to hire you when you graduate.
Yeah.
I think that's what my role is. So my role is to get into a classroom and say, yeah, textbooks theory is great, but let me teach you how to apply that so when you leave, then that corporation's going to want to hire you. So I really get the best of both worlds. I get an idea what corporations are looking for in the people that they hire, and then I get to go walk into a classroom and take textbook theory and try to deliver that in a way so that when they graduate, they've got some employability skills. So that's the fun that I have.
Algonquin College.
I always like to tell people is, I get to go to college, screw with their heads, before you get to hire them. Yeah, so that's always fun. That's always fun.
Algonquin College is in.
Yeah, so it's a full college here in Ottawa, Ontario. So it's Algonquin College.
Okay.
It's been it is the largest business college in Ontario. Some 10,000 students, heavily into hospitality. So, graduating sous chefs and chefs, but also into hospitality management. We've also into sports management, certainly into administrative side of it. So you're graduating as an HR professional, a human resource professional, or we're heavy into entrepreneurship and management skills. And so
sounds like
we like to say we're teaching we're teaching the next small business owner. We're teaching the next manager that Target's going to want to hire. So so it's fun. It's neat.
I'll send you some students. Some of my grandchildren will be right over.
Well, there you go. There you go. And, good too, because
I just love
you get to spend U.S. dollars in Canada, so you get a little bit of a hit there.
Why not?
Right?
Spread the wealth.
Oh, yeah. We'll take all the U.S. dollars you want to send down here. We're good with that.
Well, I don't know if our U.S. dollars are worth much anymore, but we'll be up. So do you have a last word before we sign off here? For our,
I'm sorry?
What is your last word before we sign off?
I always tell people, think it, act it, become it. You can really be anything you want to be. So in a perfect world, a blank piece of paper, what would you really like to do? What really turns your crank? And then let's put a plan together to get there. One of my favorite quotes, wishing and hoping won't make it so. Life is a planned event. Actually, my next book's called Get a Grip. Wishing and hoping won't make it so.
Wonderful.
And it'll all be about soft skills and about really putting together a life plan. Stop complaining. Stop complaining. Create that kind of life that you want. I think it's possible. It's all about attitude. And are you willing to put in the effort to get the result? Because wishing and hoping don't make it so.
Don't make it so. That's
Don't make it so.
Thank you very much, Brian Smith. It's been wonderful having you on, and we'll see you again soon, I hope.
Good stuff.
God bless you.
I'll send you a copy of my book so you can tell me what you think of it.
Good, and I'll send one back of mine. How about that?
There you go.
All right.
I love it.
Take care now.
We'll do an exchange. I like it.